right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the session about coaching. I have Scott Dreyer here who's going to talk to you. So Scott, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about coaching. My name is Scott Dreyer. I currently work for the Iowa Department of Education. But a long time ago when I got into education and was leaving high school, coaching was something I was very interested in. And I got a lot of good advice from some of my coaches from high school because I was going to get into teaching and definitely wanted coaching to be a big part of that. And some of the advice they gave me was make sure when you get to college that you are doing things to get you ready to coach. And if you have opportunities while you're in college or even before I would get out of high school, take those opportunities to coach and to get into the profession and do some volunteer things at lower levels just to get you ready for the future and give you some experiences and see if you like it. So when I think about coaching, I guess I think about three different levels. And the first level being volunteer type work and coaching little league and things like that a lot of high school students can do right now to get some experience. Volunteering to help out with a flag football team or to coach a little league baseball team or to coach a soccer team or a softball team or volleyball, things like that, rec leagues for little kids, kind of get you immersed into the coaching aspects and make you aware of some things like communication with parents, communication with young people. And it gets you away from what you see on TV, which is sometimes at a higher level, like a college or professional level where those coaches are so serious. It's kind of a different setting when you volunteer and when it's younger students. And I think one of the things I want to mention before we get too far into this too is the Iowa High School Athletic Association and the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union put out a report every year asking students across the state of Iowa why they participate in athletics. And the number one answer by far, there's nothing even close to it, is to have fun. And so as coaches, that's something you need to remember too. You're not into coaching just because you want to win a lot of games and be a highly successful coach and move up to the pro ranks. You're also into coaching because you care about kids, you want to work with them, you love the sport, you want them to have fun. And so you have to figure out a way to make that happen. And that's certainly not to say that you're not trying to win or you're not trying to make them as successful as they can possibly be. You work hard and those things take care of themselves. But that first level, like I said, kind of volunteering, stuff like that, those are things you guys can do as high school students and throughout your college career that'll give you some experience. The next level I would say would be the high school, middle school level or junior high level. And at those levels, there's various levels as well. Obviously, when you're talking about middle school or junior high, most school districts will tell you that's about having fun. It's about everybody participating, but it's a great place to sharpen your skills in terms of coaching. It's a great place to learn some things. It's a great place to learn some organizational skills, like I'm coaching girls, 7th grade girls basketball. Well, I also have to set up my bus times, my practice times. I have to have maybe a little handbook about what our expectations are. I have to have a parent meeting. So having to do some of these things that are as much a part of coaching as coaching the X's and O's is real good experience for young people that want to get into the coaching profession. So I would recommend those things. And at that level, I would also recommend, if you think coaching is going to be for you and you're going to maybe teach, or maybe you're going to do a different job that gives you the flexibility to coach in the afternoons and then games in the evenings, I would say you also want to learn a little bit more about your sport. And my example or my experiences, I played high school basketball and high school football, and I wanted to coach basketball, and that was my passion. So when I was in even though I played high school basketball, when I was in college, I studied basketball theory with a coach, actually with Johnny Orr at Iowa State University. And so I made sure I took his 2 theory courses. Jim Hallahan, who was an longtime assistant coach at Iowa State, taught the other course. And Pam Weddick, who was the women's Iowa State basketball coach at the time, I also took a course from her. And so taking these courses and learning all you can about the sport is invaluable. One of the things that I didn't do, even though I knew I wanted to be a high school, maybe a college coach in basketball, I did not take any opportunities with the men's or the women's basketball team. I didn't volunteer. I didn't try to become a student manager. And those are opportunities that you guys should look at with your eyes wide open and should make contact with the athletic department and find out what opportunities there are for manager type positions. When some people hear manager, they think, well, this is a person that's going to be maybe doing laundry and mopping the floor or doing stuff like that. And there may be some duties like that, but you're also going to be around wherever you go to college. You're going to be around a collegiate coach, and you're going to get to learn a lot about the X's and O's of basketball and about motivation and about leadership and about communication. So I would say you definitely want to take advantage of those situations. And again, I'm still at the level of a middle school, high school coach. Now, the next level being college, and then professionals beyond that. I'm not going to talk much about that, but if you think this is something I want to do and I want to work my way up to the college ranks and coach, this is what I want to do for a full-time profession. Most coaches at the middle school, high school level, the coaching doesn't pay enough to do it on its own, so you teach or you have other jobs that you do. At the college level, that's going to be your full-time job. And if you're looking at something like that, even in a small school, like in our area, Des Moines Area Community College, the women's basketball coach over there is a former Iowa State assistant coach, and he's coached at other Division I schools as well. Steve Krafsison also played collegiately. And that's something, too, that I would say you don't have to have played collegiately to coach collegiately. There are coaches that have won national championships that did not play college basketball. So don't put your eggs in that basket that, well, I didn't play college, so I can't coach at that level. Sure you can. There are professional coaches that didn't play collegiately. So coaching is a leadership thing. And if you want to coach at the college level, I do think it's different than the other 2 levels in terms of what you need to do to get yourself ready. If that's something you think you want to do, then before you go to your school, whether it's Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa, or Upper Iowa and Fayette, or Iowa State and Ames, you need to talk to your advisor and say, you know, I'm really interested in coaching. It's something I think I want to do as a profession. What are the majors that align myself with that? Is it business management? Is it education? Is it something in the financial realm? All of these things kind of tie in. Is it sports management? Is it communication? But you need to find out what's the best major for me, and then you need to align yourself with some of the coaches at the college you go to. What are some of the things you can do? Back in the day, when I went to Iowa State, I knew that I wanted to coach basketball, at least at the high school level, potentially at the college level. So I reached out to the Iowa State, to Johnny Orr's summer basketball camp. Do you need coaches for this camp? Yep, they did. They had a couple guys that couldn't make it. And so I got on in that year and then ended up doing it for 5 or 6 years in a row, even after I graduated. I also through that, met some guys and got to work at the University of Iowa for their summer camps, the Wartburg summer camps, the UNI summer camps. And so bounced around during the summer, getting those experiences. With a lot of those camps, the coaches take the time to sit down with the younger coaches and talk to them about that sport. These are things you need to reach out and do and immerse yourself in if you think coaching is going to be your profession full time. So those, to me, are the levels. You've got your college, you've got your middle school, high school, and then you've got your volunteer. Most people are going to, are probably that are on this video are probably thinking at this point, I'm kind of thinking high school, I might teach, thinking more of that level. And so I'll talk more about that and the experiences you'll find in coaching a high school team, no matter what the sport is. First and foremost, depending upon the size of school you're at, when you coach, you may have a lot of duties that you never thought you'd have. You might be at a small school where you're pulling out the bleachers before every game. You're putting the baskets down for every practice, and you're mopping the floor yourself and doing some of those duties. And it takes some good organizational skills, because for the most part, if you're coaching high school, you're going to be teaching. And so you're going to teach a full day, then you're going to come down for a 3:45 practice when you get out of school at 3:30, and you've got 15 minutes to get all that stuff set up for practice. Plus, you need to already have a practice plan ready. So beyond your lesson plans and your teaching all day long, and depending upon how many different classes you're teaching, you have to have a lesson plan for each one of those. It's a busy time. So organizational skills are going to be key. And every facet of what you do as a coach is going to be important. You're not going to be able to say, well, I really don't like sweeping the floor. I'm not going to do that. We're just going to practice. Well, if a student gets injured, that's your responsibility. So that part has to be important. Communication with parents has to be important, as well as the X's and O's and the games and the practices. I'm going to get a little bit more into communication with parents at the high school level. It's very important. The days of, I'm not going to talk to parents. I'm not going to talk about playing time. I'm not going to talk about why I'm starting a certain kid. Those days are kind of gone. We have parent meetings. You set up a parent meeting at the beginning of the year and be as transparent as you can with the parents. They are very vested. And by and large, and you've experienced this probably in sports that you've played in or experiences you've had while in high school, most parents think pretty highly of their kids, and they want them to have fun and have success, and they want them to play. But at the varsity level, that's a narrow number. There might be 15 kids on the basketball team. 7 might play on a regular basis, maybe 8. Usually not a lot more than that. And so that communication and transparency with parents about what your goals are for the team, what the team goals are, and what your expectations are very important. Likewise, you need to have studied the game enough to be able to fairly evaluate players. You're not going to be able to walk into the gym and say, well, there's a kid that's 6'7", he's starting because he's tall. Or I'll use a different sport, volleyball. There's a girl that can jump really high. So she's gonna play for us on the volleyball team. There's a girl, well, she's kind of short and can get under the ball. She's gonna play. Well, that's not a true evaluation. You need to know, what is it that I'm going to evaluate these young ladies on, which is going to give me my starting lineup, or which is going to give me a group of girls that I'm going to put on the court to give us the best chance to win. And of course, that's why you have multiple players on a team. You might have your starting 5, but you might have people you shuffle in too. Why are you shuffling them in, and when? You need to be able to evaluate that and evaluate talent. You need to be able to look at your teams and say, you know, here's our strengths. I'm coaching softball, and last year we had 2 really good pitchers that shut things down. And so we did a lot of slap hitting, a lot of bunting. We got a lot of base runners. If we scored 1, 2, or 3 runs, we were going to win because our pitchers shut them down. Well, this year, those pitchers were seniors. Now I've got young pitching. I'm going to pitch an 8th grader and a sophomore who don't have any varsity experience. So this year, maybe our strategy isn't slap hitting. Maybe it's not bunting. Maybe this year, our strategy is we need to hit the ball. We need to get as many base runners as possible. We need to be conservative on the bases, or maybe at times we need to take risk and get as many runs as possible. Maybe when we're on second, our philosophy is we're going to try to stretch the single all the way around to home. But you need to know that as the head coach, and that's what people are going to depend on you for. Beyond that, once you become a head coach, whether it's at the middle school level, junior high, high school level, forming relationships with your team is very important. Forming positive relationships having positive communication, your team knowing they can count on you and that you believe in them, you trust them, they trust you, you care about them, you want them to have fun, and you want them to know their role on the team. And I've coached many teams where I know just by explaining to all 15 of my basketball players what their role was on the team, it made our culture and our climate on the team a lot better. It gave me some good leadership. I have had seniors that have been captains on my basketball teams just because of how they handled themselves in practice, and they never played. But maybe they were really good at another sport, and they had respect of the team, and they were positive. And you got to give students those types of roles, and you got to have those types of relationships where we're all rowing the same direction. It's not the coach is a dictator and it's all about just winning games, and it's all about never making a mistake. Kids are going to make mistakes, and you got to be ready for that, and that's all a part of the relationship piece. I feel like I've talked a lot here and thrown out a lot of information. We only have about 35 minutes, but I want to make sure that there aren't any questions out there. And so I'm not sure if there are or not because I can't see the chat, but are there any questions at this point? I guess I would throw that out there just for a minute.
Yes, Scott. So you mentioned a lot of different skills that are really needed or more desired for success. What would you say would be the definition of success for a coach? Is it all about your record, or are there other things that would define success for you?
Well, before coming to the Iowa Department of Education and after all my coaching and teaching and stuff, I was a high school principal. So I hired a lot of coaches. And I always told every one of my coaches that I hired, whether they were a volunteer and they would go through the interview process, even if they were a volunteer, or whether they were a varsity head coach, I would tell them, you're not going to keep or lose your job based on wins and losses. It's going to be about relationships with kids. At the districts I was at, I'm proud to say we really took on the philosophy of educational athletics. Athletics are about learning a lot of things. They're about learning teamwork. They're about having fun. They're about working together as a cohesive unit. They're about overcoming adversity. And I wanted to see those things happening with our teams in a positive way. So a coach that maybe is 500, maybe at some point in the football season, they're 3-3 and we had playoff expectations. But we had a couple key players get hurt, and we had some other things happen around the team, and my coach is communicating really well, and there's great relationships on the team, and the kids, although they're disappointed with the record, are having fun and moving forward, and we're continuing to improve. Those are things that are really important, especially at the middle school, high school level, and even collegiately. You'll see Division I coaches get let go, and sometimes it's, we weren't winning and losing, but you'll hear ADs say, we really felt like this particular coach lost their team. In other words, the communication and the relationship with the team was deteriorating. You've seen on TV, you've seen big time coaches lose their job after having a successful year the previous year. And those are some of the reasons why, is that they're not forming those relationships, and they're taking care of the winning and losing, which usually takes care of itself at that level. But they don't have good relationships. They're not communicating effectively. And the players, there's problems at the player level and the team level.
How would you, if you're looking to get into a middle school or high school level coaching position, but you have no experience other than maybe volunteering with youth or something to that effect, is it necessary to find a small school who's willing to hire you with little to no experience, or is there a way that you can get into those bigger schools as your first real coaching job?
Yeah, that's a great question. Here's what happened for me, and I went to Iowa State. Um, and my wife now said to me at the time, my girlfriend said, you're going to get into coaching. Why don't you reach out to some of these high schools and see if you can help out, and that semester my classes were done. I had a lot of morning classes, so my classes were done by like 1:30. So I called Boone, which we would say is a middle-sized school, I guess, in the state of Iowa, a little bit larger than that. And I called Ames High, and I called Nevada, and I called Gilbert. And those schools all had different responses. Ames had a big process I had to go through, and I had already taken all my college or all my coaching classes. So I had my coaching authorization, but didn't have real experience outside of coaching some AAU summer ball and summer camps. And so I had never coached my own team. And so basically what I found was Ames allowed for some volunteers, but they were already full because I called kind of late. So I missed the boat on that, but I think there could have been opportunities there. I didn't hear back from Nevada, and Boone just had a brand new coach and was getting to know his staff and really didn't want to take on a volunteer type coach, and their junior high positions were full. Gilbert seemed kind of interested, but he was busy and couldn't talk to me, so I called him back. He didn't return my phone call, so I showed up at his office the next day or a couple days after and sat down and talked to him and just told him what I wanted to do. I said, hey, I'm not going to cost you any money. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I want to learn from you. I want to be a coach. And like I said, I'll do anything you need me to do. And that was with Dave Squires at Gilbert. And he said, all right, we have our first informational meeting a week from today. Show up at the meeting. I'll introduce you. And we went from there. I ended up coaching with Dave for 2 years. I was actually his paid assistant in the second year because the other assistant moved on to another district as a head coach. And so that was a great relationship. I learned a ton. And I'm fortunate. He was a Hall of Fame coach, high school coach. And so, or is a Hall of Fame high school coach. So I got to learn a lot from him. But don't be afraid to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm willing to volunteer to do this. I don't need any money, and I will be there. And that's the other thing. You've got to, it's a time commitment. Make sure you can commit that time. But the nice thing about learning and finding a spot where you can get your foot in the door, the nice thing about that is you don't have all of the commitments that a head coach has. When a ball game's over, you can pretty much just leave and go home. When practice is over, you can leave and go home. The head coach is doing a little more work behind the scenes. So every once in a while, maybe stay and figure out what some of those things are and learn from that as well. In the state of Iowa, if you have your coaching authorization, there's always junior high positions open. As a former administrator at South Hamilton and some other smaller schools, we hired a lot of college kids to fill those roles. And usually there would be an experienced coach. If they were the 7th grade girls coach, the 8th grade girls coach would be an experienced coach. So they worked in a tandem a little bit. But there are opportunities out there. It does pay a little bit of money. And when you're in college, that's always a good thing. But you're gonna make more money than it cost you in gas, and you're gonna get free experience. So that's how I would attack those things, is definitely reach out, talk to your coaches at your current high school, ask them what they think you should do to get your foot in the door, and then get to know people and stay in contact. Every year after I was done working Johnny Orr's summer basketball camp, Tom Davis's summer basketball camp, Eldon Miller's summer basketball camp at UNI, and some of these others, I would send out letters. Thank you very much, Coach. Even though they paid me, thank you, Coach. I appreciate you allowing me to work with at your camp. I learned a lot. I really appreciate your time. And just send them that nice handwritten letter. And those types of things pay off. I kept in contact with Coach Orr, and he actually wrote a letter, which I still have, a letter for me for my first job, a letter of recommendation. And so would that have happened if I'm just a college student at Iowa State and go ask him to do that? Probably not. But I worked his camp every summer and formed a little bit of a tiny relationship, more with the assistants than with him. But those things pay off for you.
Scott, you've talked about your time in college and the experiences you had there to help towards your coaching career. Is it possible to get your coaching authorization without a college degree, or are there different paths that you can take to get to there?
There are. So we live in an ag community. We could have students listening to this that are, hey, I'm gonna farm, and I'm not sure I am gonna go to school for a full degree, or I might be just going to a trade school, or they might be getting their 4-year degree but not teaching. Yes, you can take coaching classes, and it's realistic that you could get that all done probably in one semester. At one point, they had the classes set up so you could complete them over the summer. So it's a pretty quick process, but anymore, you're probably not going to find a school district in Iowa that's willing to hire you even as a volunteer coach without your coaching authorization and licensure. And if you want to know more information about that, I would look that up on the Board of Educational Examiners. And if you go to the Iowa Department of Education website, you can get to the BOEE, Board of Educational Examiners, and they have written in there what it takes to get your coaching licensure. Your athletic director at your high school should be able to help you with that as well. And some of those courses can be taken while you're still in high school.
All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So Scott, thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge and your expertise about a career in coaching. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. It was a good time.